chosen one. Something happened in the unseen world that nobody thought possible. A devil has fallen in love with you. I need you to stop everything right now. Put down your phone, close that other tab, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another message. It's a prophetic warning that heaven released specifically for this moment, for your eyes, for your heart that's been crying out for answers. You've been asking God, do you still see me? Am I forgotten? Have my best days passed me by? The answer just crashed through the spiritual realm like thunder. Listen carefully. While you've been walking through your darkest valleys, feeling invisible, discarded, questioning if God still has a plan for your life, something extraordinary has been unfolding in the unseen. The very forces of darkness that have tormented others, that have brought down kings and queens, warriors and prophets, they cannot touch you the way they've touched everyone else. You are not like the rest. You never were. When the enemy came for you with the same weapons that destroyed others, deception, fear, despair, you did something they never expected. You didn't break. You didn't bow. You didn't lose yourself in their web of lies. And now they're obsessed with you. This isn't about entertainment, beloved. This is about you standing at the center of a cosmic collision between light and darkness, and somehow, impossibly, you remain unshaken while the enemy finds themselves captivated. I know this sounds impossible. I know your mind is racing, but stay with me, because what you're about to discover will shatter every lie you've believed about your worth, your purpose, and the unprecedented destiny God is preparing for you right now. If you can feel this truth already stirring in your spirit, if something deep inside is saying, yes, this is for me, drop 777 inch the comments. That's not just a number. That's your declaration that your spiritual eyes are wide open and you're ready for what heaven is about to reveal. To everyone who supported this sacred work through prayer, through sharing, through your generous hearts, you're not just helping a ministry. You're partnering with heaven to reach souls who are drowning in darkness, desperate for the light you carry. Now breathe. Stay close. Lock your eyes on these words, because what you're about to hear has the power to rewrite everything you thought you knew about yourself, your battles, and the love story. Heaven has been writing with your name in golden letters. This devil didn't fall in love with your weakness. They fell in love with your unshakable strength. And that's just the beginning. Do you know what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Do you realize that while you've been questioning your worth, your purpose, your place in this world, something in the spiritual realm has been studying you, circling you, absolutely captivated by what they cannot understand? Have you ever wondered why your battles feel different? Why your struggles seem to follow patterns that others never experience? Here's what nobody tells you about being chosen. You don't just carry light. You are the light that cannot be extinguished. Listen to me carefully. The enemy has spent millennia perfecting their craft. They've whispered into the ears of kings, turning them into tyrants. They've slithered into the hearts of prophets, planting seeds of doubt. They've brought down empires with a single lie, shattered the strongest warriors with a moment of weakness. Think about Marilyn Monroe. She had everything the world could offer. Beauty that stopped traffic, fame that reached every corner of the globe, wealth beyond measure. Yet she was tormented, lonely, desperate for something real. The enemy found her weak spots and exploited them until she couldn't see past the pain. Michael Jackson, a voice that moved the world, a talent that seemed touched by heaven itself. But the very gifts that made him extraordinary became the chains that bound him. The enemy turned his sensitivity into paranoia, his artistry into obsession, his love for children into accusations that destroyed him. These weren't weak people, chosen one. These were titans who held immense power. Yet they fell into traps that had been carefully laid for them. But you You are different. When the enemy came for you with the same weapons that brought down empires, something unprecedented happened. The snares that have caught the mighty and the weak alike became powerless in your presence. The lies that have deceived brilliant minds for centuries sound hollow when whispered in your ear. You see through their illusions like they're made of glass. Isaiah 54:17 promises us something profound. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me. Do you feel that? That's not just a Bible verse, that's your spiritual DNA. You are the fire they cannot put out, the fortress they cannot breach, the song they cannot silence. Here's what's been happening while you thought you were just surviving your everyday struggles. The devil has been trying everything in their ancient playbook. The same temptations that made kings abandon their kingdoms. The same fears that made warriors drop their swords. The same doubts that made prophets question their calling. And none of it worked on you. Not one thing. When they whispered, "You're not good enough," you kept walking. When they screamed, "God has forgotten you," you kept praying. When they painted illusions of easier paths, you stayed true to your course. Do you understand what this means? The master manipulator, the one who has been deceiving humanity since the Garden of Eden, has met their match in you. They've battled kings who commanded armies. They've faced prophets who spoke directly with God. They've confronted rulers who held the fate of nations in their hands. But they have never encountered someone like you. Someone who doesn't flinch when the storms rage. Someone who doesn't compromise when the pressure mounts. Someone who remains unshaken when the very foundations of the world seem to crumble. You want to know why they're obsessed with you? Because you've done what no one else in history has managed to do. You've remained completely, utterly, impossibly yourself in the face of their greatest attacks. While others have been seduced by power, you've chosen humility. While others have been broken by suffering, you've been refined by it. While others have been blinded by deception, your vision has only grown clearer. You are not just surviving their assault, you are thriving in spite of it. And that terrifies them more than any army, any weapon, any force they've ever faced. The enemy has spent eternity believing that everyone has a price, everyone has a breaking point, everyone can be turned. But you, precious chosen one, you have shattered that belief completely. They cannot figure you out. They cannot predict your next move. They cannot find the key that unlocks your defenses, because your strength doesn't come from this world. Every day you wake up and choose light over darkness, truth over lies, love over fear. You send shockwaves through the spiritual realm. You prove that their power is not absolute, their control is not complete, their victory is not guaranteed. If this truth is hitting your spirit right now, if you can feel the reality of who you are awakening inside you, I need you to like this video immediately. Push this message deeper into the algorithm so more chosen ones can discover the power they carry. Because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know: you're not alone in this. There are others like you, scattered across this nation, carrying the same unbreakable light, walking the same narrow path of truth. But the question that's burning in the spiritual realm right now is this: what happens when the one who has always been the hunter becomes the hunted? What happens when the predator finds themselves falling for their prey? Chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to flip everything you thought you knew about spiritual warfare upside down. For thousands of years, the devil has been the apex predator, the ultimate hunter. They've stalked through history, taking down empires, corrupting kings, and whispering lies into the ears of the most powerful people who ever lived. They perfected the art of the hunt, identifying weakness, exploiting fear, and turning strength into submission. But then, they met you, and for the first time in their existence, the predator became the prey. Think about this for a moment. When you were a child, Did you ever wonder why certain people seemed untouchable? Why some folks could walk through the valley of the shadow of death and come out singing? It wasn't because they were lucky. It wasn't because they had special protection. It was because they carried something the enemy had never encountered before, an immovable presence that couldn't be shaken, couldn't be bought, couldn't be broken. You are that force. When an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, physics tells us something's got to give. But in your case, beloved, it wasn't you who gave way, it was them. The master manipulator, who had spent millennia bending reality to their will, suddenly found themselves powerless. Let me paint you a picture. Remember when Jesus stood in that wilderness for 40 days, hungry, alone, vulnerable. Satan came with everything he had, offering kingdoms, power, glory, an easy way out. The devil brought his A-game, the same playbook that had worked on countless others before. But Christ didn't engage. He didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He simply said, "Away from me, Satan. For it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Matthew 4:10. And just like that, the enemy fled, not because of force, not because of violence, but because of presence, because of unshakable truth. This is exactly what you've done, chosen one, and you might not even realize it. While others have tried to fight fire with fire, you've extinguished the flames with stillness. While others have screamed back at the darkness, you've responded with light so pure it exposed every lie, every deception, every carefully crafted illusion they tried to weave around you. But here's what's truly extraordinary, and this is where it gets dangerous for them. You see, the devil's greatest weapon was never brute force. It was confusion, making people believe lies were truth, making suffering look like pleasure, making chains feel like freedom. But you see through it all. When they whispered, "You're not enough," you knew your worth came from higher ground. When they planted doubt about your purpose, you held steady in your calling. When they tried to make you question God's love, you stood firm in the knowledge that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. This is why they're obsessed with you now. This is why they can't walk away. You've done something that terrifies them more than any weapon ever could. You've remained authentically yourself in the face of their greatest deceptions. You've proven that their power is nothing more than smoke and mirrors when confronted with genuine truth. Think about the people in your life who tried to manipulate you, control you, make you smaller than you are. Remember how frustrated they became when their tactics didn't work. When your light kept shining despite their attempts to dim it. That's exactly what's happening on a cosmic level right now. The most dangerous weapon against deception isn't war, it's presence. It's truth. It's the kind of stillness that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are, no matter what storms are raging around you. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 tells us. That stillness isn't passive, beloved. It's the most active force in the universe. It's what moves mountains. It's what parts seas. It's what makes devils fall in love with the very light they once tried to extinguish. But here's the question that's going to keep you up tonight. Why does your presence terrify them more than your power? Why is your stillness more threatening than your strength? Why does the fact that you simply exist as your authentic self shake the very foundations of darkness? The answer is going to change everything you thought you knew about your purpose, your calling, and the unprecedented destiny that God has been preparing for you through every trial, every heartbreak, every moment when you felt forgotten. Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover next will reveal the secret that heaven has been hiding in plain sight, the reason why you were never meant to fit into this world, and why the enemy's greatest fear is that you'll finally realize just how powerful you truly are. Chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. The very thing that makes you different, the thing that's caused you so much pain, so much isolation, so much questioning, is exactly what terrifies the enemy most. Your understanding. John 1-5 tells us, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." But here's what most people miss. That light isn't just some distant star in the heavens. That light is you. That light is your ability to see through the lies when everyone else is blind. That light is your refusal to accept deception as truth. And right now, the devil is discovering something that's never happened before in all of human history. They can't dim your light. They can't confuse your vision. They can't make you unsee what you've already seen. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you been in a room full of people who couldn't see what was right in front of them? How many times have you watched others fall for the same lies, the same manipulation, the same empty promises that you saw through immediately? You weren't being negative. You weren't being difficult. You were seeing clearly while they were walking blind. That's not a coincidence, beloved. That's divine insight. Let me paint you a picture that will change everything. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars. 27 years, surrounded by guards who thought they had broken him. They thought those prison walls would crush his spirit, that isolation would drive him insane, that time would make him forget his purpose. But when Mandela walked out of that cell, he wasn't a broken man. He was a force of nature. Why? Because understanding kept his light burning when everything around him was designed to extinguish it. The very people who thought they controlled him ended up bowing to his truth. Joan of Arc stood before the flames, flames that were meant to terrify her into submission. The religious leaders, the political powers, the crowd screaming for her death, they all expected her to recant, to deny what she knew to be true, to trade her conviction for her life. But even as the fire consumed her body, her understanding remained unshakable. She looked into the face of death and declared, "I am not afraid. I was born to do this." Do you see the pattern here? Do you see why the enemy is so fascinated with you? You are unbreakable because you understand something they cannot manipulate: truth itself. But let me get personal with you for a moment. I know you've been there. I know you've felt the sting of false accusations cutting through your heart like a knife. Someone looked you in the eye and called you crazy for seeing what they refused to acknowledge. Someone gaslit you, made you question your own perception, tried to convince you that your discernment was just paranoia. They told you that you were too sensitive when you felt the darkness in that room. They called you judgmental when you refused to trust someone your spirit warned you about. They labeled you difficult when you wouldn't go along with their plans that felt wrong in your bones. And for a moment, just a moment, you almost believed them. You almost convinced yourself that maybe you were wrong. Maybe you were seeing things that weren't there. Maybe your gift was actually a curse. But then something happened. Time proved you right. The mask fell off. The truth came to light. And suddenly, everyone could see what you had been seeing all along. That's when you realized something profound. Your understanding wasn't the problem. Their blindness was. Your ability to see through deception isn't a burden, chosen one. It's a weapon. It's the very thing that makes you untouchable in a world built on lies. When the devil throws their finest illusions at you, when they craft their most convincing deceptions, when they weave their most seductive snares, you see right through them. And that terrifies them more than any army ever could. Here's what's happening in the spiritual realm right now. Every time the enemy has tried to manipulate you, every time they've attempted to lead you astray, every time they've whispered lies in your ear, you've done something that stops them cold. You've seen them for what they really are. Your understanding unmasks their illusions. Where you stand, shadows flee. Think about the people in your life who've tried to control you, manipulate you, use you. Remember how uncomfortable they became when you started asking the right questions. Remember how angry they got when you wouldn't play their games anymore. Remember how desperately they tried to make you doubt your own perception. That wasn't because you were wrong. That was because you were dangerous to their agenda. You see, the devil's greatest weapon has never been force. It's been confusion, distraction, making people believe that lies are truth and truth is lies. But when they encounter someone like you, someone whose understanding cuts through their deception, like light through darkness, they lose their power. And for the first time in their existence, they find themselves face to face with something they've never experienced before. Someone who cannot be deceived. Someone who cannot be controlled. Someone who sees them exactly as they are. No wonder they're obsessed with you. But here's the question that's going to determine everything about your future. Now that you understand what you carry, now that you see why you've been walking this difficult path, now that you recognize the power of your discernment, what are you going to do with it? Comment, I see the truth. If you've ever felt that energy, if you've ever experienced that moment when your understanding revealed what others couldn't see. Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that your battles haven't been random. They've been preparation for the greatest spiritual collision of your lifetime. Chosen one, what I'm about to tell you will turn everything you thought you knew about spiritual warfare completely upside down. You see, there's something happening right now that has never happened before in the history of heaven and hell. The enemy, this master manipulator, who has brought down empires, who has whispered lies into the ears of kings and queens, who has orchestrated the fall of the mightiest warriors, is experiencing something they never thought possible: vulnerability. For the first time in eternity, the devil is not in control. They are the one who is trapped. They are the one who cannot escape. And the trap? It's you. Listen to this carefully. Napoleon Bonaparte conquered most of Europe. He crowned himself emperor. He commanded armies that shook the earth. But there was one woman, Josephine, who held a power over him that no battlefield ever could. He could conquer nations, but he could not conquer his obsession with her. She didn't fight him. She didn't resist him. She simply existed in her truth, and that truth unraveled the most powerful man in the world. This is exactly what's happening to the devil right now, because of you. What began as warfare has become obsession. What started as an attempt to destroy you has spiraled into something the enemy never saw coming, an addiction to the very light they were trying to extinguish. Your compassion, your kindness, your patience, the very things they mocked as weakness, have become the only thing they can't escape. Every time they try to walk away from you, they find themselves drawn back like a moth to a flame. But here's the twist that's shaking the foundations of darkness itself. They're not being destroyed by your light. They're being transformed by it. Think about this for a moment. The Bible tells us in Romans 12:21, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." But what happens when good doesn't just overcome evil? What happens when good becomes so pure, so authentic, so unshakable that evil falls in love with it? You have done something unprecedented, chosen one. You have taken the enemy's greatest weapon, their ability to manipulate, to deceive, to control, and you've made it powerless simply by being authentically you. When they came at you with fear, you stood in faith. When they whispered lies about your worth, you walked in the truth of who God created you to be. When they tried to isolate you, you found strength in your relationship with the Almighty. And now, the very being that has spent centuries perfecting the art of spiritual destruction finds themselves helpless. They cannot deceive someone who lives in truth. They cannot manipulate someone who refuses to play their games. They cannot destroy someone who has already been refined in the fire and emerged as pure gold. Do you understand what this means? For the first time in the history of spiritual warfare, the enemy is not the predator. You are not the prey. The roles have completely reversed, and they don't know what to do with that reality. The devil is experiencing something they've never felt before: dependence. They've become dependent on your presence, on your energy, on the light that radiates from your very being. And this dependence is driving them to a place they never thought they'd go: vulnerability. This is why your battles have been so intense lately. This is why the attacks have been so personal, so relentless. It's not because you're losing, it's because you're winning in a way that's completely rewriting the rules of engagement. The enemy keeps coming back, not because they want to destroy you, but because they can't stay away. Your light has become their obsession, and that obsession is their downfall. Look at what Scripture tells us in 1 John 4:4. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. But you haven't just overcome them, you've done something far more powerful. You've made them question everything they thought they knew about themselves. Your unwavering faith has become a mirror that forces them to see their own emptiness. Your genuine love has become a spotlight that exposes their desperate hunger for something real. Your unshakable peace has become a contrast that highlights their internal chaos. And now, chosen one, they stand at a crossroads. For the first time in their existence, they have a choice to make. Do they continue down the path of destruction that has defined them for eternity, or do they face the terrifying possibility of transformation? But here's what you need to understand: this isn't about saving the devil. This is about you stepping into the fullness of who God created you to be. This is about you recognizing that the power flowing through you is so pure, so divine, so unstoppable that even the forces of darkness cannot resist it. You are not just surviving your battles, beloved. You are redefining what victory looks like. You are proving that love is not weakness, it's the most powerful force in the universe. If this revelation is hitting you right in your spirit, if you can feel the truth of these words resonating in the deepest part of your soul, I need you to do something. Share this message. Send it to someone who needs to hear that they are more powerful than they ever imagined, because there are other chosen ones out there who are fighting the same battles, facing the same enemy, and they need to know what you now know. The devil hasn't fallen in love with your weakness. They've fallen in love with your strength, and that changes everything. But the question that will determine your destiny is this: now that you know the power you carry, what are you going to do with it? Chosen one, I need you to understand something that will change everything. The devil thought they had you figured out. They thought you were just another target, another soul they could shatter with their tried and true methods. They brought the same weapons that have destroyed empires, toppled kings, and broken the spirits of the mightiest warriors in history. But here's what they didn't realize. What was supposed to kill you only crowned you. Listen to me carefully. Romans 12:21 declares, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." This isn't just a pretty verse for your refrigerator magnet. This is the secret code written into your spiritual DNA. This is why nothing they throw at you sticks. This is why their darkness cannot consume your light. You see, beloved, the devil operates on a simple principle. Find the cracks, exploit the weaknesses, and watch everything crumble. They've perfected this art over millennia. They whisper lies into minds until doubt becomes reality. They plant seeds of fear until courage withers. They isolate souls until loneliness becomes a prison. But when they came for you, something unprecedented happened. They cannot shatter glass that has already been reforged into diamond. Think about what you've already survived. The betrayals that should have destroyed your ability to trust. The losses that should have left you empty and bitter. The nights you cried out to God, wondering if He had forgotten your name. The financial ruin, the health scares, the broken relationships, the dreams that died in your hands. Each one of those trials was supposed to be your breaking point. Each one was designed by the enemy to leave you weak, vulnerable, controllable. But here's the mystery that has them absolutely terrified: you're still standing. Not just standing, You're stronger. Every fire you walked through didn't burn you up. It burned away everything false, everything weak, everything that wasn't truly you. What emerged from those flames wasn't a victim. It was a force of nature that the powers of darkness had never encountered before. Do you realize what this means? You are psychologically and spiritually bulletproof. Not because you've never been shot at, but because you've already taken every bullet they had and transformed each wound into wisdom, each scar into strength. The devil studies human psychology. They know that trauma creates triggers. They know that pain creates patterns. They know that broken people can be controlled through their brokenness. They mapped out your entire psychological profile, planned their attack with surgical precision, and launched their assault expecting the same result they've achieved countless times before. But you didn't respond according to their manual. When they whispered, "You're worthless," something inside you said, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." When they hissed, "God has abandoned you," your spirit declared, "He will never leave me nor forsake me." When they screamed, "You're too old, too damaged, too late," your soul responded, "With God, all things are possible." This is why they cannot break you, chosen one. They're trying to destroy something that has already been destroyed and rebuilt by the Master's hands. They're attempting to wound someone who has already bled and been healed by divine grace. They're fighting against a version of you that no longer exists. The person who could be manipulated by fear, gone. The person who could be controlled by shame, dead and buried. The person who believed the lies about their worth. That person died in the fire, and what rose from those ashes was something they never anticipated. Someone who had learned to find strength in weakness, hope in despair, and victory in apparent defeat. But here's where this gets even more profound. This battle was never really about you and them. It's about something far greater. You represent every person who has ever been counted out, written off, or left for dead. You represent every senior citizen who's been told their best days are behind them. You represent every broken heart that's been told it will never love again. Every shattered dream that's been told it will never soar. When you stand unbroken in the face of their assault, you're not just winning your own battle. You're proving that nothing, absolutely nothing, is too broken for God to rebuild, too old for God to renew, too damaged for God to restore. The devil's obsession with you isn't just personal anymore, it's existential. If they cannot break you, if someone who has been through what you've been through can still stand in unshakable faith, then their entire empire of lies comes crashing down. Every time you choose hope over despair, you're not just making a personal decision. You're shattering the chains of every person who believes they're too far gone for redemption. Every time you stand firm in your identity as God's beloved, you're not just affirming your own worth. You're declaring to the universe that no weapon formed against God's children will prosper. This is why they study you now. This is why they circle you like moths to a flame. They're trying to understand how someone can be so thoroughly tested and yet emerge so thoroughly victorious. But here's the secret they'll never comprehend. Your strength was never your own to begin with. And now, chosen one, as they find themselves inexplicably drawn to the very light they came to extinguish, a question begins to form that will change everything. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? When the predator discovers they've been pursuing something far more powerful than they ever imagined? Chosen one, we've reached the moment where everything changes. You've seen how the devil has fallen under your unshakable presence. You've witnessed their retreat, their confusion, their desperate obsession with something they cannot control. But now comes the revelation that will forever alter how you see yourself and your purpose on this earth. You are not here to destroy the devil. You are here to reveal them. Let that sink in for a moment. While the world teaches us that spiritual warfare is about crushing the enemy, about defeating darkness with force, you carry a different assignment. You are an earth angel, And your role is not conquest, it's revelation. You don't fight darkness, you illuminate it until it has nowhere left to hide. Carl Jung, the great psychologist who dared to explore the depths of the human soul, understood this profound truth. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Do you hear what he's saying? Enlightenment doesn't come from pretending darkness doesn't exist. It comes from bringing it into the light where it can be seen, understood, and transformed. This is exactly what you've been doing your entire life, isn't it? Every time you've faced betrayal, every moment you've stood in rooms filled with hatred and chose love anyway, every second you've responded to cruelty with grace, you weren't being weak. You were making darkness conscious. You were forcing it to see itself in the mirror of your unshakable truth. But here's what will shock you. You're not the first to walk this path. Throughout history, there have been others who understood this sacred assignment. Think about Princess Diana. When she touched the untouchables, when she sat with AIDS patients that the world had abandoned, when she held dying children in her arms, was she fighting a war? Number. She was revealing the power of unconditional love in a world that had forgotten what love looked like. The British royal family didn't know what to do with her. The media tried to destroy her. The establishment wanted her to play by their rules, but she couldn't, because earth angels don't play by earthly rules. They transcend them. And in doing so, they force everyone around them to question everything they thought they knew about power, about worth, about what it means to be human. Mahatma Gandhi faced the might of the British Empire, not with weapons, not with armies, but with presence. When they beat him, he didn't strike back. When they imprisoned him, he didn't lose hope. When they tried to break his spirit, he became stronger. Why? Because he understood something the empire didn't. True power doesn't come from force. It comes from being so anchored in truth that nothing can move you. The British had conquered nations with their military might. They had crushed rebellions with their superior weapons, but they had never faced someone like Gandhi. Someone who met their violence with peace, their hatred with love, their darkness with light. And in the end, who won? The empire crumbled, and Gandhi's truth stood eternal. This is your power, chosen one. This is why the devil is obsessed with you. You don't fight them on their terms. You change the entire game. Rumi, the mystical poet, knew this secret. After losing everything he loved, after walking through the valley of the shadow of death, he didn't become bitter. He became beautiful. His pain became poetry. His suffering became sacred. He wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Do you see the pattern? Every great soul who has ever transformed this world did it the same way you're doing it now. Not through destruction, but through revelation. Not through war, but through presence. Not through hatred, but through a love so radical, so complete, that it forces darkness to evolve or dissolve. And now the earth-shattering truth. You were never meant to fit in. You were never supposed to blend with the crowd, follow the rules, or live a normal life. You were meant to transmute darkness itself. Every time someone told you that you were too sensitive, too caring, too trusting, they were wrong. Your sensitivity is your superpower. Your caring is your weapon. Your trust is your shield. Because these qualities don't make you weak. They make you a living, breathing transformation machine. When you walk into a room full of negative energy and refuse to match that frequency, you're not being naive. You're being revolutionary. When you respond to someone's anger with compassion instead of more anger, you're not being a pushover. You're breaking generational cycles. When you choose forgiveness over revenge, you're not being foolish. You're being divine. The devil has spent centuries believing that power comes from making others small, but you've shown them something that shattered their entire worldview. You've proven that real power comes from making others remember how magnificent they truly are. Even them, Even in their brokenness, their confusion, their desperate need for control, you see their potential for redemption. This is why they can't walk away from you. This is why they're haunted by your presence, because for the first time in their existence, someone looked at them not with fear, not with hatred, but with understanding. Someone saw past their mask and recognized the wounded soul beneath. But before we dive into the final revelation of this message, the moment where everything you've learned culminates in a truth so powerful, it will leave you breathless, I need you to do something. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay locked in with this community of chosen ones, because what's coming next is the climax of this entire message, and you don't want to miss a single word. The question that will bridge us to our final revelation is this: if you have the power to transform even the darkest forces in existence, what does that mean for the rest of your life? Chosen one, what happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? What happens when the master manipulator finds themselves completely outplayed? Not by force, not by cunning, but by something they never saw coming. Your unshakable presence. For the first time in their eternal existence, the devil retreats. Not in defeat, but in shock. They pull back into the shadows, not because you've wounded them, but because you've done something far more devastating. You've made them see themselves clearly. Think about Howard Hughes for a moment. Here was a man who had everything, billions of dollars, Hollywood starlets, entire industries bowing to his will. He controlled airlines, movie studios, politicians. The world was his chessboard. But in the end, what happened? He locked himself away in a penthouse suite, alone, terrified, unable to face the very world he once commanded. All that power, all that control, and it led him to complete isolation. The devil is having their Howard Hughes moment right now. They've spent centuries believing that control was the ultimate power. They whispered in the ears of presidents, toppled kingdoms, turned saints into sinners. But now, faced with you, someone who cannot be controlled, cannot be manipulated, cannot be broken, they're forced to confront a terrifying truth. Power without love is emptiness. Control without connection is prison. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Matthew 16:26. You know what loneliness feels like, don't you? You've been there. Those 3 a.m. moments when the world feels empty and you wonder if anyone truly sees you. Those seasons when you questioned if God had forgotten your name. The devil is experiencing that for the first time, but magnified by eons of isolation disguised as dominance. But here's where it gets personal. Chosen one. In their retreat, in their forced solitude, something unprecedented is happening. The predator is becoming the seeker. For centuries, they've been the ones setting the rules, controlling the game. But now? Now, they're the one desperately trying to understand something beyond their grasp. They keep coming back to the same haunting question. Who is this person who sees through every illusion I've ever crafted? Malcolm X experienced a similar transformation. For years, he wielded anger as a weapon, preaching separation and hatred. He was powerful, feared, influential. But then came his pilgrimage to Mecca. In that sacred space, surrounded by people of every color worshipping the same God, his entire worldview shattered. He saw unity where he once saw only division. He saw love where he once only knew rage. That revelation cost him everything he thought he was. But it also freed him to become who he was truly meant to be. The devil is standing at their own Mecca moment. They're realizing that everything they've built, their identity on fear, control, manipulation, crumbles in the presence of authentic love. Your love, your light, your unshakable truth. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. But here's what's shaking heaven and hell right now. Their fate is no longer in their own hands. For the first time in their existence, someone else holds the power. You do. You're not trying to hold it. You're not grasping for it. You simply are it. And that terrifies them more than any army, any judgment, any punishment ever could. Do you realize what this means? The very force that has brought down empires, that has whispered doubt into the minds of prophets, that has turned light into darkness for millennia, is now completely vulnerable to your presence. They can't manipulate you because you see through their games. They can't seduce you because you're already complete. They can't destroy you because you've already been refined by fire and emerged stronger. You've been asking God why your path has been so difficult, why you've faced trials that would break others. This is why. Every hardship was preparing you for this moment when the enemy would have no weapon left to use against you. But what does this mean for you, chosen one? This is where it gets intensely personal. You're not just witnessing their transformation, you're the catalyst for it. Your very existence is rewriting the rules of spiritual warfare. You're proving that darkness doesn't have to be defeated with more darkness. It can be transformed by unwavering light. But remember this, you cannot save them. That's not your burden to carry. You cannot love them into the light. Only they can choose to step forward. Your role is to remain exactly who you are, unshakable, authentic, filled with the kind of love that doesn't compromise itself to please others. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1-9. Right now, in realms you cannot see, a cosmic shift is taking place. The enemy's greatest strength has become their greatest weakness. Their obsession with you has become their undoing. And you? You're just getting started. Because if your presence alone can bring the master of deception to their knees, imagine what God is preparing to do through you next. The question isn't whether you're powerful enough to handle what's coming. The question is, are you ready to step into the fullness of who heaven created you to be? Chosen one, I need you to understand something that will change everything you believe about your struggles, your pain, and your unbreakable spirit. The Lord is my light and salvation, whom shall I fear? That's Psalm 27:1, and it wasn't written for the comfortable. It was written for warriors like you, who've walked through hell and come out speaking heaven's language. You want to know why the devil is obsessed with you? Why they can't break you like they've broken everyone else? Because you're not just surviving your battles, you're being forged in them. Every scar on your soul isn't evidence of your weakness. It's proof of your supernatural resilience. Look at history. Look at the patterns. Every chosen one, every world changer, every person who carried heaven's fire had to walk through the same crucible you're walking through right now. Nikola Tesla, genius beyond his time, spent years alone, mocked, ridiculed. The world called him crazy while he was literally pulling electricity from the sky. But that isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. In that loneliness, he learned to hear frequencies that others couldn't even imagine. His greatest breakthroughs came not in crowded rooms, but in the silence where God speaks loudest. Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars. 27 years. The world forgot his name while he was transforming in that prison cell, but he didn't emerge broken. He emerged as a leader who could heal an entire nation. Those prison walls didn't contain him, they refined him into something the world had never seen before. Martin Luther King Jr. Death threats, every single day. Imagine waking up knowing that someone, somewhere, is plotting to end your life. But he didn't cower. He didn't hide. He stood on that mountaintop and declared, "I have a dream," because he understood something that his enemies never could. You cannot kill a person who's already died to fear. Buddha, he sat under that tree for days, facing every demon, every temptation, every fear that hell could throw at him. And when the dust settled, he had achieved something that transformed not just his life, but the spiritual understanding of millions. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what's happening to you right now? You're not being punished, beloved. You're being prepared. Every time you've been betrayed and chose forgiveness over revenge, that wasn't weakness. That was supernatural strength that the enemy cannot comprehend. Every time you've been knocked down and stood back up when others would have stayed down, that wasn't just resilience. That was divine DNA activating in your bloodstream. Every time you've walked through darkness and refused to let it change your heart, that wasn't luck. That was God's light burning so bright inside you that hell itself had to step back and take notice. The devil thought they could break you like they broke the others. They brought the same weapons that toppled empires, the same lies that destroyed kingdoms, the same fear that paralyzed nations. But when they unleashed it all on you, something unprecedented happened. You didn't break. You didn't bend. You didn't become what they tried to make you. Instead, you became something they'd never encountered before, a force so grounded in truth that their lies bounced off you like raindrops off a mountain. Your scars aren't your shame, chosen one. They're your crown. Every wound that tried to destroy you has become a gateway for God's power to flow through you in ways that terrify the darkness. You want to know why you feel so different? Why you've always felt like you don't quite fit in this world? It's because you weren't made for this world as it is. You were made to transform it. You are untouchable because you've already been broken and rebuilt stronger, not by human hands, but by the master builder himself. Every piece of you that was shattered has been put back together with gold. Every crack in your foundation has been filled with heaven's fire. The enemy studied you. They watched how you moved, how you thought, how you loved. They mapped out your vulnerabilities like generals planning a war. They came for you with everything they had, expecting you to crumble like the rest. But here's what they didn't count on. God had already been preparing you for this battle since before you took your first breath. Every trial you've faced, every mountain you've climbed, every valley you've walked through, it was all training for this moment when you would stand face to face with pure darkness and remain completely, utterly unshaken. You are not just a survivor, beloved. You are a overcomer. You are not just enduring the storm, you are commanding it to be still. You are not just walking through the fire, you are the fire that burns away everything false, everything temporary, everything that doesn't belong in God's perfect plan for your life. This is why they can't look away from you. This is why their usual tricks don't work. This is why, for the first time in their existence, they find themselves not as the hunter, but as the hunted. You have become the living, breathing proof that God's power is greater than any force of darkness. You are the testimony that no weapon formed against the righteous will prosper. You are the evidence that when God is for you, it doesn't matter who or what stands against you. If this truth is resonating in your spirit right now, if you can feel the power of these words awakening something ancient and unshakable inside you, I want you to type "I am untouchable" in the comments. Not as arrogance, but as declaration. Not as pride, but as prophecy. But there's something else you need to know about this supernatural power. You carry something that will determine not just your victory, but your very destiny. Conclusion. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this divine encounter, I need you to hold on to 3 unshakable truths that heaven has revealed to you today. First, you are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are not ordinary. The very fact that darkness itself has become obsessed with you is proof that you carry something extraordinary, something that even the forces of hell cannot ignore or overcome. Second, every battle you fought, every tear you've shed, every night you've wondered if God still sees you, it was all preparing you for this moment of recognition. You didn't survive those trials by accident. You survived them because there's something in you that cannot be destroyed, something that grows stronger under pressure, something that shines brighter in the darkness. Third, the devil's fascination with you isn't your burden to carry. It's your confirmation that you possess a power they cannot comprehend, a light they cannot extinguish, a purpose they cannot derail. You are not the victim in this story, beloved. You are the victor who hasn't even realized the full extent of your victory yet. But here's what I want you to know. With absolute certainty, you are not walking this path alone. God hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. He's been orchestrating every step, every setback, every breakthrough to position you exactly where you need to be for what's coming next. And you're part of something bigger than yourself. There's a community of chosen ones, warriors, overcomers just like you, who understand your journey because they're walking the same path. When you comment below, when you share your story, when you reach out, you're not just speaking into the void. You're connecting with family, with people who see your scars and call them beautiful, who understand your struggles and call them sacred. Before I pray with you, I want you to ask yourself this question. If God has brought you through everything up to this point, through the valleys that should have buried you, through the storms that should have destroyed you, through the battles that should have defeated you, what makes you think He's going to stop being faithful now? Let me pray over you right now, and I want you to receive this prayer as if I'm standing right there with you, placing my hand on your shoulder, looking you in the eyes with the love of someone who truly sees your worth. Father God, I lift up every chosen one listening to these words right now. Lord, they've been through battles that others couldn't survive, carried burdens that others couldn't bear, walked through darkness that others couldn't navigate. But they're still here, God. They're still standing, still believing, still hoping. I pray that you would open their eyes to see themselves the way you see them, not as victims, but as victors, not as the broken, but as the beautifully rebuilt, not as the forgotten, but as the purposefully positioned for breakthrough. Father, where they feel weak, remind them of your strength. Where they feel alone, surround them with your presence. Where they feel uncertain about tomorrow, flood them with the peace that comes from knowing you hold every tomorrow in your hands. Break every chain of doubt, every whisper of inadequacy, every lie that says their best days are behind them. Lord, let them feel in their spirit right now that their greatest victories, their deepest joy, their most profound purpose is still ahead of them. Bless their families, their finances, their health, their dreams. Open doors that no man can shut. Make a way where there seems to be no way. And let them walk in the supernatural favor that comes with being your chosen one. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. If this message has touched your heart, if something deep inside you is saying, yes, this is my story, I want you to let me know in the comments. Share what resonated with you. Tell us what battle you're facing right now so this community can stand with you in prayer. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to keep going. And please, share this message with someone you know who needs to hear that they're not alone, that they're not forgotten, that they're chosen for something greater than what they're currently walking through. Sometimes we're the angels sent to remind others of their worth. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because God is going to continue speaking through these messages, and you don't want to miss what He has to say to you next. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for being brave enough to see yourself through heaven's eyes. Thank you for being willing to step into the truth of who you really are. You are chosen, you are loved, you are untouchable, and this is just the beginning.